Welcome to The Abundance Project, the podcast where together we hack the game of life to manifest more abundance in business, love, money, and freedom. I'm your host, Tess, a six-figure business owner, a fiance, a hot dog mom, and a woman who, just like you, is navigating the journey of compounding abundance every single day. In each episode, we'll dive into practical strategies, inspiring stories, and actionable tips to help you unlock your fullest potential and create a life overflowing with abundance. Whether you're looking to elevate your career, deepen your relationships, achieve financial freedom, or simply find more joy and fulfillment, you're in the right place. So join me on this adventure as we learn, grow, and manifest abundance together. Let's get into the episode. Guys, I cannot tell you how absolutely excited and honored I am to have this conversation. I don't even remember how it happened that we met in person, but today on the podcast we have Courtney, Emma. I'm gonna let you do your own little intro in a second, but for context for everyone, you obviously live in New Zealand. You had visited the Gold Coast. You must have reached out to me. I can't remember why I would have known that you were here because I know you didn't post about it. So you came to the Gold Coast. We met up and had the most beautiful sit down conversation, lunch, saw a beautiful rainbow. That rainbow is honestly etched into my brain. It's one of the most beautiful synchronicities. And I know at that point in time, you were going through such a journey of your own internal discovery, which has landed you in a really cool place that I've been seeing. And I'm so excited to have all of the conversations about that today. But before we get into it, I would love for you to introduce yourself in the most aligned way for you now. I know every time we introduce ourselves, it kind of changes and shifts and evolves. So I'm really excited to hear how you speak about yourself now. Tell us what you do, tell us your story, and we'll take it from there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm even as you're speaking, my heart is racing in the best way possible. I'm just so excited to be here to have this conversation. And it's so wild because when I did come over to Gold Coast, my family lived there and I was having a 2-month break from socials, from business, from everything. And it really wasn't this time of I was in the void, but I was I was in the void, but it was also I need to talk to this person. I need to reach out. And so I did. And then we had that incredible conversation. I was this is always aligned. And it's so, before I even go into the introduction, I'll go on a tangent, but it's even when you feel like you're not on the path or you're immersed in the world that you want to be immersed in, there's always sprinkles of magic throughout, and they always come on the void. And it's so funny. So
fuck, we definitely will speak about the void because holy motherfuck, there is so much in that.
We must, and she's been a time. I'm Courtney Emma. Emma is my middle name, and I am a mind, body, soul coach and healer. I also do EFT tapping. I'm an EFT tapping practitioner, and I just wrote a book, so then that now makes me an author, which is the first time I've introduced myself as that as well, which is so exciting. I'm wow, you can really just do that for yourself, which is crazy. And I run retreats and I have the podcast, and that's kind of what I do on the outside. But in the work that I do with women, it really is focused on everything comes back to healing, and healing in the way of not everything having to be healing doesn't have to be in the trench and feel all of this heaviness and stuckness, but we can make healing feel light. And it really is about bringing people into a space where they feel safe to go to the depths of their soul so that they can look at what is actually holding me back unconsciously, consciously, what is gripping my soul, and what is the burden on my soul that I'm not allowing to fully express within myself. And then going, okay, cool, well, if that's the things, we work through those. Now, what's on the other side of that? What am I focusing my attention on? How can I bring more joy, fulfillment, peace, and gratitude? All the things that I actually want in my life, and that whatever I have in my external reality, what truly means success. And that is that feeling of self-connection.
That's so beautiful. I feel like with every one of us that gets called to be a healer or a light worker or like whatever terminology you want to use, right? There's always our own embodiment and our own story first. And especially with you having been in the quote unquote void, which I feel like we can give some context to what that actually is in a moment. But I want to know, like, what got you into this world? What's your story behind the work that you now share?
I feel like my story first started when I was like quite a lot younger. So I grew up in church and was always very like a spiritual person. My family, they all they all are Christian or have a faith or religion, but they're all different. So I
Mm.
had my experience of growing up in church with my dad's side of the family that were like Anglican, Presbyterian, Catholic, like they're literally all different, which is hilarious to think, but it's all the same thing, right? And then on my mum's side, it was very much this more spiritual, more woo-woo journey, you could say, if you want to put terminology to it. And they were also Baha'i for a while. So my mum and my grandma were practicing Baha'is, which believe that all prophets came to Earth to teach people different things at different times in human consciousness, which all in like a nutshell, it really is like all things in spirit, religion, everything. Like it's all the same. And it really gave you this foundation of like, oh, like there is so much out there for people. And it made me realize that not everyone's journey is going to be like A to B or like that is right for someone or that is wrong for someone. It's like everyone's going to have their own path to spiritual enlightenment, call it what you will, and connection to source, divine, or connection to their own soul, connection to self. So I'd say it really started there, and then I went to a course. Like my parents got divorced when I was 9, and they were like, "Okay, I think it's good if we send Courtney on this course." I think it was like 11 or 12 or something. And I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's called Landmark Forum. It's like one of those like big, it's like a big international self-development conference, effectively. And yeah, I was probably like 11, and I remember going to this conference, and they talked about the concept of nothing has meaning apart from the meaning that we place on things.
Mm.
And that being something that stuck in so deeply in my mind around the meaning that we place on things. And honestly, that served me so much throughout my teenage journey as like being a teenager. I'm like, do not take me back, like hard times and experiencing trauma in different areas of my life and kind of getting to this point where I would say what, 23, 24. I'd read all the books, I'd listened to all the podcasts, I'd started to apply these things in my life. Like I had people that I could talk to about these things. And then I reached my like I'm done moment. Like I'm effectively like with love, I'm sick of my own shit. I'm sick of not actually applying these concepts to my soul, into my life, and actually making a change. And that's where everything shifted. And it was so simple to start with that the change was simply sitting in self-connection and space every single day. And that was meditation and journaling for 20 minutes every single day for like 4 months. And at the start, I was like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not getting anywhere. Like, this is really hard. And after a few months, I started to realize that most of my problems or most of my issues and the things outside of myself actually came from the root cause of not being connected to who I am and not feeling safe if something was coming up for me or I was becoming aware of, there was no space for it to be healed. Like there was no space or energy for me to actually look at that thing. And so that really sparked a journey of healing. And whatever concept you put to it, whether it's your spiritual journey, your healing journey, your self-development journey, again, like it's all the same thing. It's just what you resonate with yourself. And even with my clients, I'm like, I talk about one thing, but like call it what you want to. And that's sparking the journey of mindset, of nervous system regulation, and spirituality as being these three key pillars that really led to the healing that I got to experience in my life.
That's so beautiful. And I want to zoom in on this concept of the void because especially when you you have a certain identity and you think you know who you are and like I almost want to caveat and say that the way that I would explain the void is very much the space between where you're at now and where you want to be. And it's some people I've heard refer to it as the magic dark. And I personally use, and
Mm,
you would know my analogy, I use the rainbow analogy of when you say you want a rainbow, like you're probably gonna be delivered a storm on the way there. You're gonna have that like that thunder lightning experience, and you're gonna be like, what the actual fuck? This is not what I asked for. But it really
hmm
is that process of this is who I thought I was. And I realized that this is who I've been taught to be. This is who I thought I needed to be, but it's not who my soul actually is. Oh, fuck. What is that? Who am I? Like, what do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? How did you for yourself navigate that period of the void? And like, it's so easy to say, how did you navigate that void? But like, there's
mm,
going to be endless voids in our life, right? There's going to be another level of evolution and another one and another one and another one. But for you in this most recent time, like what was the
mm.
experience in being in the void? I had no idea that you were going to write a book. Like what I'm assuming that that came out of the void, like all of the things. Share with us that
Yeah.
story.
Where to start? I feel like what would be most beneficial is to like to start kind of right at the start. So bear with me on the lengthy story. But
Go for it.
I feel this year I went in and I was like, I feel really solid. Like I ended last year having navigated like a few like really big things of like really exciting big things. Like I left my full-time job. I went into the complete uncertainty of life and I ended at the end of the year very everything was very uncertain in my life, but I felt really solid within myself. So I was like, I'm good. Like, we're good. Like we're actually slay, let's go in. And going into the start of 2024, I was like, okay, cool. There's something else here though. And it about mid-January, it was like all of this fear. It was like an all-consuming fear, shame, doubt, not enoughness. It was like this like wave, like literally like a storm, just like was all consuming and all encapsulating for I'd say like almost 2 months. And there was like I was still thriving. I was still showing up, I was still doing the thing, I was still like loving life. But at the same time, there was a very, very real part of me that was like, oh, there's something really, really big here that like I'm just not seeing and I'm not feeling good in what I'm doing. And it landed with me. There was a few things that me and my partner were working through, or like we were looking at selling our house, and that decision was unfolding. Obviously, that's a big decision, and a few other things happening with family, and a lot of things that were kind of like in my little orbit, I would say. And all of those were out of my control. And I had to sit myself down. I was probably end of March. I was like, I need to sit myself down and go, okay, if these things in my outer orbit that aren't like actually within my soul and aren't in my like energetic field like close to me, if they are out of my control, all I can control is what's within my control. And I had to sit myself down and be really, really honest. And I was like, the things in my orbit right now are actually taking a lot of energy and something's not feeling good. So what can I do within myself? And that's when I made it felt like the hardest decision of my life. Like literally it felt like my soul was being ripped from my chest and I was like, see ya. I'm going into the void, right? And that was stepping away from my business that I've been building for 2.5 years, taking space from social media, taking space from like pretty much the whole world. I was just like, I'm like, I just need to go do my thing. And in that time, like so many things came up in my life where I was like, I needed this space to be so present in these things that were happening and these life experiences that were unfolding for me that I did not even see. Like I could not comprehend how much I would desire to be needed and like to support others in that time and to support myself as well. And there was there was a time when I made that decision. I was like, I actually don't think I'm going to come back to doing this work for like 3 years. I was like, if I need to give myself 3 years, I will. I was like, I honestly was like I'm done. Like I need to look after my energy, honor everything. And about 3 weeks later, I was like, why do I feel so good? Why do I feel like actually everything's starting to realign? Why do I feel just so much gratitude for life? Why do I feel this joy, this abundance, this love? And there can be so much focus when we're in something or when we're having something that's all consuming and when all of our energy is being focused on, say, for instance, like the thing that we want or the thing that feels just far out of reach or not fully accepting our life circumstance and where our energy needs to go, the season that we're currently in, that is where all of our energy goes. When I close like that door and a few other doors, like in my personal life, what was in my own control, what was left was the focus on the life I already had and the people that I already had in my life and had already done so much work on relationships and relationship to self, self-connection and fulfillment and the life that I'd already created. And it was like I got to sit back, let all of the dust settle of like years of healing and actually just like receive my life for the first time. And it was like I can't explain it. It was like for 2 months, it was just like literally everything was just like I would think about something I'm grateful for and I'd break down in tears. Like I would go to a friend and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, like that was the best connection we ever had. All of these things started to happen and I just constantly felt in the state of joy and bliss from coming out of the void. And so often we can think the void is like, this dark place. We're like, I can't see anything. And while yes, it is, it can also be the time where we go into the void and we actually just see ourselves right now in the life we have right now and then go, oh, I'm in the void because I thought I was all of these things, but actually I didn't see the life I had right now in this moment. And then from that place, when you can fully see yourself, can you fully see your life and receive it as it is, and the gratitude and love and the blessing it is to be alive, from that place, everything becomes clear. Everything actually becomes the path in which you can see more so, more so than before. And you didn't even know that you needed to go through that. I wouldn't even use the word like rebirth, but it is just like this. The universe was like, you can't see it yet, so we're going to have to take you so far away so that you can actually get to the root of what you want, which is fulfillment, gratitude, and receiving life as it is.
Mm. I feel like that's such a beautiful story that kind of like demonstrates the way that I personally see abundance and the way that I personally see like the beauty in life, right? Because the thing is, we're all always going to be chasing more, growing more, like healing more, evolving more, whatever it is. But that's never going to feel satiating and fulfilling, exactly like you
Mm,
said, if we don't already feel good. Like we don't manifest what we want, or we don't manifest what we think we want, we manifest what we feel. So if we're constantly feeling not enough, if we're constantly feeling lack, if we're
mm-hmm,
constantly feeling scarcity, if we're constantly feeling like all of these heavy frequencies that actually are within our control, whilst like we can go down the human design route and like talk about being an emotional authority and like you go on the waves and like sometimes you are a passenger of life and a passenger to your emotions, and that's totally fine. But when the dominant
mm,
frequency is lack, scarcity, fear, all of these things, we have to ask ourselves like, oh, what have I been plugging into and what have I been going unconscious in, and how can I unplug from that so that I can come into this reality of abundance?
mm,
Because our reality is that the collective consciousness doesn't live in abundance, right? They live in lack, scarcity, fear. And all it takes to start shifting away from that is to start with your perspective and to start with
mm-hmm,
how you're viewing the life that's playing out in front of you. So I think it's so beautiful to hear you speak about the void in the sense of like, I would almost call it an unbecoming before you can
mm,
get reborn, right? It's like you have to clear all the shit so that you can see what's actually there, what ingredients you actually have, so then you can bake a beautiful cake. That's such a random
mm.
analogy, but like we're gonna run with it,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. And using that analogy, I think it's absolutely all of what you just said. Like that is so key. And learning to not tolerate, like when you're in the void, it's like your energy becomes so like clear, like so cutthroat, so ruthless for the self-love that you have for yourself and your energy, because you're like, I don't want anything to disrupt this.
mm,
And while you're going through that side of it, there's also the side where you go, I'm protecting my energy at all costs, and you actually start to it's like you don't tolerate so many things anymore. How people speak to you, or certain jobs or conversations, um, ways of being within yourself. There's this shift where you go, I'm actually not tolerating any of that anymore, and I can't, because if I don't, I literally can't operate. And it's this, if you understand this language, like when you get to this point, if you're in the void or not, you get to a point where your energy just won't let you tolerate these things anymore. And it will be so all-consuming that you have to shift and change it, because you become so aware that you're like, I just can't do this to myself anymore. I love myself too much to tolerate this energy that no longer aligns with me.
What do you think the difference is on the journey that someone goes on where they get to the point where they're like, oh, this is too much, but I'm actually just going to go back to my old identity? Because what stops a lot of people from living in abundance, living in the reality that they design and like receiving their life is that going through the void, like let's not deny it, can be so fucking terrifying and like
Hmm.
incredibly hard. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability to take yourself through that, to walk yourself through that, to be supported through that, to like whatever you need to do in that. And so I feel like a lot
Mm.
of people get to that point and they go, oh, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see that and I'm going to go back. And I do agree that
Hmm.
there's, when you are conscious to it, there's only so many times you can do that before you're like, all right, I'm fucking sick of my shit. Like, let's go into the void. I literally have
Yeah.
no other choice. But I feel like a lot of people don't get to that point in this lifetime and they stay
Mm.
living in the fear in the collective. How, like, what do you think the difference is? Is it a choice that someone can make to like lean into the void? How do you coach your clients through that? Because I'm sure that they all experience very similar things
Mm.
too, right? Like, I'm just so excited to hear what you think.
As you're speaking, the word that came to my mind was pattern. And it's the conscious choice thing. Like we will run a pattern of what we think is right, or we should be doing, or should tolerate, or just a way of being that we think is safe for us. We will continuously go in this pattern until we reach a point where we go, this pattern is no longer serving me. I'm consciously choosing to, one, fucking love myself enough to intercept this pattern and no longer like give myself this like run around anymore. And I think this has been very true for me, but I know it's true for a lot of people, that when we are in a pattern or a cycle of something that we think we need to do to get, and especially when we talk to healing, sometimes we think we have to, and sometimes the opposite can be true. So like
Mm.
hold both truths. But sometimes we think we need to experience something to heal something, and we need to heal something to get something. Like we need to heal this to manifest something, or we need to, you know, do this thing or keep ourselves like uncomfortable so that we can, build resilience, that we can have the healing so that we can get the thing. And we think we're in this pattern, right?
Mm.
And sometimes the lesson is that. Sometimes the lesson is go to the uncomfortable place, lean the fuck in. Like, love yourself enough to go all the way to the depths and then sail on out of there. Other times, you've actually learnt that lesson already. That pattern actually is no longer serving you. That pattern that you've kept yourself in, that you think you need to be in to heal, to get, doesn't actually exist. The pattern for you is to intercept and say, actually, no, this is the time where I say I love myself enough to know and trust that I actually have all of the answers and all of the blessings and all of the things that I've received from this experience. And now I'm going to love myself enough to actually take myself out into an experience of life that I get to love, that is more peaceful, and leading every single decision that you make from a perspective of, does this bring me more peace? Does this bring me more ease? And sometimes that will be, I need to go through this uncomfortable experience, go back into my past trauma, because I know that if I do that, I'm going to actually give myself more peace, because it's interrupting my peace. It's taking up precious space in my beautiful internal garden, and it fucking needs to go. Other times it's going to be like, are you actually putting yourself in the constant cycle of chaos that you have normalized for your life, that actually now is the time for you to go, that's not my life anymore, and I get to normalize being in a constant state of inner peace?
Everyone needs to rewind and listen to that again and again and again because your brain right now is going to be like, I don't get it. And then you're going to move on from that. But that is the key. It's holding those two truths, the duality in it. And I think specifically for my audience and the women that I attract, like I almost see it like a ladder, right? Like you start with the base level of self-love work and the base level of like gratitude in the sense of like you
Mm,
buy the little journal where you write your three things that you're grateful for every day and you're like conscious about it for a week and then you're just like doing it out of habit and it's like I'm grateful for the sun but you don't actually like feel it. There's that base level of
yeah.
like love and light work, right? And then you go into like the shadow work and the like I'm being a lazy cunt, I'm being a like a little bitch, I'm being a people pleaser, like there's like the shadow work and it's deep and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard and it's honest, but then your ego does this thing where it re-evolves and it goes okay, I call this the conscious cock block, right? It's like you get too conscious for your own fucking good to then the point where your ego uses that to keep you stuck in that layer and you actually need to break through the glass ceiling and come
Yeah.
back to the love and light work from the most evolved sense of
Mm-hmm.
like actually I'm unconsciously creating this pattern, creating this chaos, creating this havoc. I'm
Mm-hmm.
making something that could be a sprinkle storm into a thunder and lightning storm and it doesn't need to be that intense. Like for anyone that lives in Australia and has been to Canberra where you go to Questacon and they've like got the man-made lightning. It's like you put yourself in there and you don't need to be in there. You just need to be out in the like sprinkling rain, right? Like what a fucking I'm on point with my analogies today. But
Yeah,
honestly,
it's good.
we start doing that to ourselves and we
Yeah.
make it worse. So I'm so glad that you brought up this point of like sometimes it is leaning into the hard and
Mm,
sometimes it is actually like no, babe, your comfortable place, your comfort zone is the
mm,
hard. Can you lean into the letting it be light and letting it be easy and letting yourself be supported and letting yourself be taken care of? Like,
mm-hmm.
and I think that this is where things like mentorship and having a healer or having someone with outside eyes who can see both and can know
Mm-hmm.
what place you're in is so fucking helpful because when you're in it, you're like, I don't really know
Mm.
like what's my pattern, what's my thing. You get so blind to yourself. Do you find that when you are coaching women, when you are like, I know that you've reopened your healing spaces and you're working with people again, which is so exciting. Do you find in those spaces that you can quite easily see where the patterns are and you can quite easily like point out their blind spots? What do you have a process for that? Like, how do you help women see what end of the truth they're in?
Yeah, what end of the truth? What are they allowing themselves to believe to be true? And as you were speaking, like that was what happened for me. I was stuck in that place. I was keeping myself in a pattern that I was like, I just couldn't see that it wasn't actually right for me.
Mm,
And it took my mentor to come in and go, Courtney, like, do you actually need to be there? Do you actually need to be in the situation? And this is the powerful thing. We have all of the answers within our own soul, but there are such pivotal times in our life, and I can remember like a handful of them where someone has reflected to me something really powerful about myself or a blind spot or something that I just literally can't see.
mm,
And it all lands, and I go, oh shit, like actually, no. Like actually, no. And like reminding me of my own truth. And that's all I see now as coaching and mentorship and healing is is reminding someone of their own truth that already exists within them. Because otherwise they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be resonating with the person or whatever. Because the person's not reminding them of themselves, of their true self, their soul self, not their ego self. And this is it's so exciting to be back with clients and even the last like couple weeks having like both the EFT tapping and healing sessions because they're similar but also like so different. And like in a healing session, if someone was to bring this in, it's all about allowing themselves to see what's actually serving them in their life right now. Like, are they actually going to a place? Like, do they actually need to build safety within themselves, within their nervous system, within their soul? How can they align themselves to fulfillment and peace, and then energetically align themselves to that love in whatever way that gets them there? And those two energies that we talked about before. In EFT, it's really about looking, okay, if there is something that is coming up for me, what is the root fucking cause? And this is why I love EFT so much. And I'm just like, it just works so well for so many things that are so specific. Because if someone brings something in, like I'm in this job that's like toxic, or like I don't like my boss is mean, or like whatever, like just they come in with something and you go to the root cause of everything that anyone ever brings into EFT. The root cause of everything is guilt, fear, shame, lack, scarcity, and not realizing their inherent worth.
Mm.
Every time, every time. And the thing on the other side, like I use EFT energy, so you take people from like a low frequency state to neutral and then to a high frequency state. So, like from -10 to 0, they're embracing those parts of themselves that feel shame. This is full acceptance, full love, full radical, just like awareness and acknowledgement that they feel shame and it's okay to feel it, that they feel fear and it's okay to feel it. Because as soon as you acknowledge and you accept, it literally dissolves. It literally accepts. And when you're in a safe space with, say, for instance, a healer or a mentor or someone else that is so safe for you can borrow some of their safety for a little bit so that you can build some of your own within that practice. On the other side of that, you then get into, okay, well, if that dissolved and if that's no longer true for me, then what do I want to be true for me? And how can I build safety in that? How can I actually realize I'm already safe in that? And it's interesting. Every single client that I have that does EFT, when they get through to going into those higher frequency, deeply loving and accepting and acknowledging themselves as the most highest frequency version of who they are, they're like, why is this uncomfortable? And it surprises them that that's actually just as uncomfortable, if not more, than accepting that they feel shame, guilt, fear, all of the human emotions that already exist. You were born out of the womb with everything. The faster you accept that you have all emotions and everything, the faster you actually just get to see your life like as it is. And in those like higher frequency states, it's about people coming into love. Inner power is a huge theme, and fulfillment. It's like, who am I to feel loved? Who am I to feel validated in my own opinion? Who am I to feel convicted in my own truth? And that's where it doesn't matter what someone brings in, the situation, the conversation, the past trauma, anything. It always lands in one of those energies, whether it sounds surface level at the start or it feels so specific, it waters down to one of those things that is so solid and is the foundation to all of this work.
Mm. When I think to like Marianne Williamson's version of like A Course in Miracles, and really that concept of like everything does bubble down to fear or love.
Mm,
Like that's it. We either are in a frequency of fear or we're in a frequency of love. Like when you look at it so simply from that
so
form,
simple.
you're like, oh wow. And it is so interesting with
Mm,
the collective and everything, how much more comfortable humans are in fear. Like that feels like home. That feels safe, ironically, even if we don't like it feels safe to the ego, right? When you
mm,
are moving from that frequency of love, because like I've been doing, I know you'd be so into this. I've been learning a little bit about like dark forces and things like that, like dark energies and shit. And when
mm,
you learn about like the lighter you get, the brighter you get as a light worker, as source in a human form, whatever you want to look at it as, you are like think about bugs. They're so attracted to light. Like you are become a bit of a target. Like it is actually
mm,
quite terrifying to be
mm-hmm,
in your full expression of light, in your full like open heart, in your in the
mm-hmm,
frequency of love. Like I think people would be surprised how terrified we actually get of that. But it is so powerful, and even like if it does blind people, which it will, like your light is absolutely going to blind people, and when it does, that gets to be okay because it either gets to
mm,
awaken them or it doesn't. But that's not on you. Like you gave them that opportunity, and your life, your experience of this like reality projection thing that is going on in front of our eyes, which just insane to think about. Your life gets so much better when you do choose the frequency of love over fear. But exactly
mm,
like you said, it's like not shaming yourself, not making the fear, like actually both get to coexist at the same time. And I always say to my clients, your fear can come with you, but it's like in the car on the journey, but getting the
Mm.
fucking back. You're not playing the music, you're not reading the map, and above all else, you are not fucking driving. You can come on the journey, but
Mm.
like get
I love
in
that.
the back.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool for you to be able to, through EFT, which I want you to expand on because I feel like a lot of people might be familiar with it, but also might hear this and be like, sorry, what is EFT? Like, please explain
Hmm.
to me more. I want to
Yeah,
know. But
true,
for
true.
you to have an actual modality to take people through that journey of elevating their frequency, I think is so incredible. So tell us more about what EFT actually is.
And I love like the part of like when you become light, like all like the darkness can come. And I had an experience of this last week, and without going into context, I was like, I've kind of made it. Like I'm like I'm here, and I'm feeling so, my heart is so open that I'm like I'm starting to go through these things where I'm like I can't even believe that I'm like doing this. This is crazy. But it's just like all of our work, and like all of my work this year, when I like toned it down, is literally like opening my heart and keeping it open. Because there are, and this is not to say, oh my gosh, there's so many things, but like factually in my life, in that little orbit that I talked about before, there are a lot of things in my life that it would be very easy for me to just close my heart, padlock the key, and like see you later, sis. And it's about, but despite of those, how can you keep your heart open? And
Mm.
like I almost like emotional talking about it, because it really is about seeing what would usually give us the excuse or the validation. And then sometimes you are completely valid to close off your heart, protect yourself. Like, don't say that you're not, but are you willing to, despite of those, also look at, go, okay, I'm going to close it for a little bit, but I'm also going to open it back up. So I think it's important to just say, like, if you can simplify all of your work, all of your healing, everything to like, is my heart open? And the more open my heart is, the better my life gets. The
Mm.
more vulnerable I am, the better my life gets. The more love that I allow into my life and I actually get to receive, the better my life gets. And magical fucking things happen when I keep my heart open. Like this week has been insane. But EFT, and I love EFT because it's like it's something that's quite I don't know. I always think of it as like a workshop. Like you could go to like a little workshop when you do this. And I trained in EFT end of last year, and it was really for me bringing like a therapeutic element into my coaching. Like I wanted something therapeutic. I wanted something soft, because the coaching can be quite like my love, like love yourself enough to, we're going to go through all of these things that are heavy and trying, and we're going to get through them together to bring light to them. And EFT was about kind of potently taking something that they had real fear around unpacking, and going, let's unpack it in one session and take you from a low frequency to, let's take you up a little bit of a notch, or let's take you to neutral, or let's take you from neutral to high frequency, by having a process around that. And effectively, all EFT is about giving yourself an affirmation, tapping on meridian points. So if you think of like acupuncture, instead of using needles, you use your own hands. So like I'm not doing the tapping, like they're doing their own tapping on their
Mm.
own body on certain meridian points, while saying their statement and affirming what they believe now to be true, what they are deeply loving and accepting themselves for. It's a pretty much, boil it down, it's a worth and self-love process, and to support integration of like, I am inherently worthy and I do love myself unconditionally. So taking someone from something where they just fear bringing something up. They fear, I've had this awareness of something. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know where to fucking put it in my life, but it's like literally right in front of my face. And energy, it's taking up all of my energy. So that energy doesn't just like go away, it gets stuck in somewhere in our body. All energy gets stuck somewhere in our body unless we look at it. So whether it's in one of your energetic meridian points, you'll start to feel like tired and stuck and stagnant and go, why is there no joy in my life? Because something within you is not flowing, because you're not allowing yourself to look at it. So EFT allows you to allow the energy to actually flow through your body and accept those emotions, allow them to flow through you, and realize, oh, I'm actually safe enough, I'm actually capable, I'm actually worthy enough to have my energy flowing, accept all of these things, and realize I actually get to be okay. And I not just not be okay, I get to fully embrace the other side of that that I also have resistance to and allow that energy to flow through myself, through my internal energetic body, and therefore in my external reality as well.
I love that so much. The way that you explained that, I have never heard EFT explained in that way before. So yeah, that was really beautiful and something that I want to go back and touch on this like boiling down to the concept of opening your heart and the strength that it takes in that. Like I've been playing a lot with the whole independent woman, like the boss babe movement, and like we love her, we love that, but it's also swung
True.
so far.
Yeah.
And it's like bringing it back to how often vulnerability is seen as weak, but true vulnerability is really keeping your heart open. Like true
Hmm.
vulnerability is that like I'm gonna allow myself to be put in a position where my heart could be broken, where I could be hurt, where I could feel pain, but I'm strong enough to hold that pain. So I'm
Mm.
gonna allow myself to let the love in, even if this opposite end of the spectrum becomes a thing in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Mm.
it is so beautiful when you boil it down that simply to these concepts of opening my heart and like staying in love instead of fear. I just think that's so fucking beautiful.
Mm. Yeah. And that like something that popped in was like vulnerability became so much easier for me when I realized that I was so supported by God, the universe, whatever you
Mm,
like want to call it. In any vulnerability, what like God wants me to keep my heart open so that I can impact and help people. And if I'm being vulnerable with people, that's what I'm doing.
mm,
If I'm opening my heart, that's what I'm doing. I'm living in alignment with my calling of what I'm here to do.
mm,
And just because it's my calling, just because I have clarity on what I know to do, does not mean that it is easy. In fact, I believe that the things in which we are called here to do, like our biggest blessings on the world, our biggest teachings, whether you're a coach or a mum or just a human being, your biggest blessing will probably be the thing that you endured the most, the thing that you had the biggest wound around that you actually chose to heal and that became your expertise. Like how
mm,
often do you have a PT that goes through a beautiful self-love of their body journey and then becomes the evidence for others? How often do you have like a mindset coach that goes through this, journey of like limiting beliefs of shadow and going like, this is how you get to live. It was so powerful for them, they also get to be that for others. And this is literally keeping your heart open. Like, one is that, and also vulnerability has been my biggest work. My biggest work. There was a time where I didn't even tell friends, like, I'm like, gonna tell you something, but like, there was a time where like my mum was really, really sick. This was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And I think I told one friend because I was like, I can't tell anyone because I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to, for them to treat me any differently. I don't want to have like, imply any like give them anything to worry about. All of this utter bullshit of these people that genuinely deeply loved me, I didn't tell anyone. So coming from that place of like not telling people things that were happening in my life to now, like I work in vulnerability. Like the vulnerability that I have unlocks someone's permission to literally heal themselves. And that
mm.
doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay. If it did, I'd be a dysregulated fucking mess ball on the floor. But trusting the journey, trusting the process that if you have something, and I think sometimes it helps to like think about life this way, right? Everything happens for a reason. But at the same time, if you're going through something, if you're journeying through something, like at some point that will become your biggest asset. At some point, that hard thing that you enjoyed will become your skills, will become your gift to the world.
Mm. I want to give another side of the coin there because your story about vulnerability is so beautiful, and vulnerability has been a big piece of my work as well, but in a very different context. I remember a mentor saying to me, like, I used to pride myself on my vulnerability, and she was like, "Hey, Tess, do you know that you're actually using your quote unquote vulnerability to protect you from being actually vulnerable. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, my whole like world blew up. And
Like, no,
it's so
shan't.
interesting. And like that the difference between like knowing when to express something, when is a clean space to express something versus like the people that would be like, I was semi like emotional dumpy vulnerable. Like I'm
Mm.
like mid in my prep, like kind of crying on my Instagram stories, like being quote unquote vulnerable, keeping it real. But really, there are some things where you're like, they probably just like keep that for your journal or like talk to a mentor or speak to a friend. So when we start to harness like vulnerability in its highest frequency,
Hmm.
it's one of the things that my clients love most about coaching with me. It's like I will always give you the honest truth of like what I'm experiencing,
Mm,
what I'm going through, because that's an appropriate setting for it to be shared in
exactly.
versus like me jumping on my Instagram stories while I'm in the depths of something, being like, guys, this is what's going on. Like, I think the question to ask yourself if you are learning to be vulnerable and you're not sure where you're supposed to express that, it's like, oh, am I trying to palm this emotion off to somebody
Mm,
else because I can't hold it myself, which is not a bad thing, but you need to come at that with conscious awareness of, okay, I'm going to palm this off. I'm going to share the load with someone. A, does this person have capacity to hold that with me? B, is this an appropriate setting to do that? Because your Instagram stories certainly are not. But a coach, a mentor, a friend, like
mm,
someone that you come to of like, hey, I'm actually going through a bit of a hard time. Like, do you have capacity to hold me in some emotion, hold me in
mm,
some vulnerability? Like that shared moment,
hmm.
vulnerability creates such deep intimacy and connection. And it
Yeah.
is such a beautiful experience to have when you learn, like, inherently, like you said a little while ago, we all are everything. We all have everything within us. Now we're going to choose to express that on the shadow side or on the light side. And that's
Mm,
when we do bring in that element again of like the shadow work of like, okay, you're actually being an emotionally dumpy, like
mm,
little sad woman right now. Like, let's bring it back into like what's the highest frequency of
mm,
this gift that I can have? What's the highest frequency of vulnerability? And it is sometimes looking like maybe you're not in the depth of the emotion, but you've passed through the experience.
hmm.
Now I'm going to share it because that's me being a leader. That's me being a permission slip for others. That's me
Yeah.
being the evidence for others. And that is so powerful. It's like we don't have to hide what we've been through because your story is going to unlock so much healing in somebody else and you get to be that healer, that space. I love that your bio says like a safe space or a sacred space, hold a space holder
Mm,
for others. I think that's just so beautiful, but I really do think that it's so cool for people to see the gift of vulnerability and the journey that it takes to get there from two different
mm,
starting points. Like everybody's going to have their own journey and their own story, but for someone to experience their own evolution of vulnerability or like love frequency or healing, whatever it is, like it is just the most incredible thing.
yeah. And I think like what you said around, that vulnerability that we have, like that really empowers others or like leads others to unlocking something within themselves. It's asking yourself, am I being vulnerable to connect to someone and connecting through two energies? Like one is in that like am I connect like using vulnerability to connect with someone that I deeply want them to care about me and me offering my vulnerability when I'm a fucking mess, when I'm like crying, when I'm just like a shell of myself. And that allows me to connect with the other person, be held, and it strengthens our connection. Does it strengthen or repel? If you
Mm,
know, if and this is not a thing of like, oh, like I fear around vulnerability. It's like, no, are you genuinely like, if I go to this person with the energy and the intention of like, I want to connect and I want to strengthen our relationship through me sharing this.
mm,
Like, does that land? And on the other side of it, as you said, that leading part of like, if I vulnerably share this thing, it comes from such a grounded place where I've already actually healed it. Now I'm sharing my wisdom. I'm not sharing my current experience. I'm sharing my wisdom from that experience, and that expands someone and that connects to someone. It connects to the part of themselves that go, oh, there's permission to share more of myself. There's permission to be more vulnerable because it comes from such a grounded, activating place, you know?
mm. Yeah, that is the most beautiful. Like I love that you are so gifted at simplifying things, at really like bringing it down to that basic understanding level. And it's really like the basics are the basics for a reason, right? And also I
Yeah,
just acknowledge right now that my room looks like a literal
it
globe
does.
of I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna take that
It
as
looks
fun.
gorgeous. I know. I was like, wow, she's
She's in a
literally
rainbow.
glowing. Yeah.
I love it so much. I feel like there is so much that we could continue to talk about and have more conversations on. Like we could be here for fucking days, but I want to leave everyone with that snippet of you, that snippet of your wisdom, because I want it to actually integrate and land for people. And like, I don't want people to overcomplicate things when the simplistic form that you've delivered everything in today is just so impactful. And so if everyone could let that land for themselves, they're going to go very, very far with their healing and their growth and their personal evolution journey. But if there were to be one more thing, I'm going to anchor it back into the abundance project. If there were to be one more thing that you, or one piece of advice that you were to give to a woman that is looking for more abundance, whether it be in money, in love, in freedom, in health, in business, in like friendship, whatever it is, she's looking for more abundance, what would be one key thing that you would boil it down to for her?
Do you have the space to receive it?
Oh, mic drop.
If you want self-connection, are you creating the space to receive that? If you want a better relationship with your body and exercise, are you creating space to receive that? Or relationships, or anything, literally anything. Your own healing. Are you creating space, safe space, to receive the healing that you desire, to receive the manifestations you desire?
I love that. Let it be that simple, guys. Honestly.
Because it is.
So beautiful. All right. Well, you obviously have a book. You're an author now. Tell us, where can we find you? Where can we find the book? Where can, like, if people want to work with you, where can they reach out? Give us all the details. Obviously, I will drop them in the show notes as well.
Oh, amazing. I'm literally like, I get giddy. Like, I feel like I've got two energies. One's like this grounded, like complete, like I'm in the channel. And then the other one is like this, like full ADHD, like got the zoomies, just like excited for life because I'm like, fuck me, there's so much going on. It's all amazing. So in that kind of energy, my book is on Amazon. So it's called Who Are You for You? It's a guide to self-connection through your mind, body, and soul. And it is like literally the foundational principles that I see as healing self-connection to your mind, body, and soul, and keeping it really, really simple. It's a guide. And for everything else, for EFT healing and my long-term container, my 3 and 6 month container channel of healing, everything is on Instagram and everything is in the link in my bio. And there's a wee website as of today. A wee website that gives you bits and pieces information. If you're a logistics girly and you're like, I need to know what's up, it's all there for you. And if you're a straight energy and you're like, that's what I want, then the invitation is there for you. And there's a bunch of like free workshops, free Facebook groups, like literally hours of stuff. If you're like, I just want a little taste and I want to binge, there's so much for you there. And the podcast, all the links are in my bio.
I love that. Thank you so much for gifting your time to me and to us. Like I'm just so appreciative, and this has been an incredible conversation that I know everyone's going to get a lot out of. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. All right, guys. I shall see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so incredibly much for tuning into this week's episode of The Abundance Project. It means the world to me to have us create a community of like-minded people who are creating abundance in their own lives. So if you could share this episode with a friend, give us a 5-star rating, tag us when you share on your Instagram stories, it would mean the absolute world to me. Until next week, guys, go and find some magic in the micro moments. Love you.